This is the Remarkable Paper Pro. This is a follow-up to one of my favorite e-ink devices to draw on. Now, this new one is faster, it's got a front-lit screen, and it's color now. Hello, my name is Brad. I review tech for creative professionals, and I'm pretty jaded. I use a lot of pens, I draw on a lot of things, but I can still remember the day that I got the Remarkable 2 in the mail just a few years back. Pulled it out of the packaging, set it up, drew on the screen for the very first time, and I was so blown away that I immediately went downstairs and showed it to my wife, and I made her draw on it. Now, she doesn't care about this stuff at all, so it wasn't like I was looking for a second opinion or anything like that. I was just so impressed by how good the pencil felt that I had to show somebody. So for me, the biggest change this year isn't the color display or the backlight or the bigger size. It is the pen, because they've switched over to using a USI stylus. The old pen was a Wacom EMR pen, which is one of my favorite pens to draw with. It's great for drawing and illustration. This comes with a USI stylus. Actually, it's a separate purchase, and I don't really like USI styluses nearly as much. The lines it produces are just too wobbly, so this is a downgrade for me. Not as much as I thought it would be when I first pulled the pen out of the packaging and realized what I was dealing with, but anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to be doing a deep dive into that in a bit. Because the second thing that made the Remarkable 2 really great for drawing and sketching, they've really doubled down on here, and that is the textured screen. Since fidelity in the image isn't as important on an e-ink display as it is, say, on an Android tablet or an iPad or one of the Wacom tablets that I like to use, they can really crank up the texture on the front of the screen, and they have. In fact, this time around, they're bragging about having reduced the glossiness of the screen by 15%. I have never seen a manufacturer brag about that stat before, but I am 100% here for it. We're living in an era where matte screens are getting slicker and slicker, but I love that textured feel. And that Remarkable 2 was also my first time using an e-ink display many years ago. I've used several more since then, but my expectations then were not super high because I was used to those iPads and those Android tablets. And even now, I'm coming off reviewing the latest high-end Samsung Galaxy Tab, the S10 Ultra. That display is insane. It is crazy beautiful. I don't know at this point how they're going to make displays better than that. So it's important to point out here that the Paper Pro is really shooting to do something very different. I would not use this for finished art. Like, I'm not going to color by comics on this. The color accuracy, it just isn't there. But for sketching, capturing ideas, and really just having something to use as a digital sketchbook that you can take with you anywhere, that's what they're going for here. So the philosophy that Remarkable brings to the table is very minimalist, and I'm a little bit torn on this. I appreciate design that holds back features in order to provide a better experience, or just pulling back features so that there's less there and you can focus on the core task that you have. So a great example for this would be apps that people usually draw on. Photoshop does so much more than, say, an app like Procreate. So much more. But Procreate has stripped down drawing and painting down to like its essence. It hasn't bogged down its app with a whole lot of extra features. In fact, when they wanted to do it more with animation, they just spun up a completely separate app. And because of that, I do prefer to draw and paint in an app like Procreate because it's more streamlined, even though it doesn't do nearly as much as an app like Photoshop. So what you see on the Paper Pro is what you get. It opens up to this stage, and you can make a new document or use one that is already there. When you open a document, you have a handful of tools there, and you can draw, you can write, you can type something, and that's about it. It's basically a notebook, but it's digital. And this is where I'm really torn, where in the case of Procreate, the minimalism helps me just focus on drawing. Here, I felt that the minimalism was holding me back. I want to do more. When I have a device like this, I think of all of the use cases that I can use it for. I can use it for writing, I can use it for drawing, I can use it for reading. But when I went to use it, I felt like all of those things were held back by the minimalist philosophy in some way. So if I am going to write something, I don't want what I write to be stuck on this device. Right now, when I do that, when I write, I have to email that to myself as a PDF, or I can just pull the text out of it and just email the text. Then I have to open it on my desktop or my iPad or my phone or something like that and pull that text into something actually useful. And as I was using this, I just wanted to type in Google Docs. If I'm sketching, I don't want all of my work trapped in this ecosystem. Even if it does have that ability to export, I would rather just do it in Clip Studio and then finish it on the desktop or a tablet. There's so many cloud services out there that enable you to work so seamlessly that when you add a couple steps in between, it feels really clunky. If I want to read a book, having the ability to pull up, say, a Kindle app would just be so much easier than having to find a PDF or find an ebook, export it from whatever you bought it in, and then upload it to their web interface and then open it here. And I think what's really spoiled this for me is having used other devices like the Kindle Scribe, which is also really locked down and limited, but it's locked down to Amazon's ecosystem. So at least there, all my books are like already loaded up and I can just open them, or I can listen to like any of my Audible audiobooks right there on device. I also use the Books Air. I use that every night. I can read audiobooks on that from anywhere on the web. Plus, I can read a newspaper or magazine app that I subscribe to. I can use any Android drawing app that I want on there. Honestly, the performance of those apps, not that great, not designed for e-ink at all, but I can do it. And this is where the philosophy of minimalism crashes into the reality of getting things done. What compounds this are the accessories. They sent over some really nice things. They sent over a cover. They sent over the type cover. Of course, they sent over the pen. And the thing is these are great. The cover for this thing, so cool. It is beautiful. It feels great in the hands. It does not feel cheap like so many covers for these things do. There's even this like little loop that protects the pen when it's closed, and then the leather on the back is recessed a little bit so that loop magnetically sticks to the back and doesn't get in your way. So elegant. I love it. The keyboard. Oh my gosh, the keyboard design. Someone finally nailed a simple keyboard tablet design. This is so good. So many keyboard covers are wonky and they're weird, and sometimes when you flip them over, you have to actually like touch the keys when you're holding the tablet or pull it out. Like on the iPad, the Magic Keyboard cover, you have to like just pull the iPad off if you want to use it without it. This, you pull it up and then you push it back and it's perfect. And when you want to use it as a tablet without the keyboard, you just flip it over and it works. It's so elegant. I love the design of this. They nailed it. So I want to type more on this keyboard. I really want to use it more, but typing in this app is really clunky and it's not practical and it lacks some of the simple text editing tools that you find even like in the YouTube comment section. That's maybe an exaggeration, but the point is I'm left with a hardware keyboard I desperately want to write with, and I have an interface, some software that is actively hostile to that goal. So I really feel like hardware, yay, but software, eh. Hey, quick note, no sponsor today, so I want to shout out my courses over on bradsartschool.com. There's Learn to Draw in 60 Days, every day a new video lesson with homework, learn the basics of art, and I also have an Intro to Digital Art class where I teach some of the techniques that I use in my comics. Anyway, want to learn more? Check out my site. So let's talk about the screen. The Remarkable Paper Pro is larger this time around, coming in at 11.8 inches corner to corner. It's about the same size as an iPad Pro, actually. It is lighter, probably because it's not packing in as much battery as an iPad Pro, but it does become a more substantial device to hold than the Remarkable 2. Now, if you're a regular to this channel and you've seen a lot of my videos, you're probably used to me talking about the traditional aspects of a screen: nits of brightness, refresh rate, color calibration. None of those things are applicable here. It doesn't do any of those things well because this is a very different technology that we're dealing with. It has a different purpose. The benefits of an e-ink screen are not really in the fidelity, but really in battery life and how easy it is on the eyes. Now, I mentioned that Books Note Air 3C just a few minutes ago. That is my daily driver, has been for the last several months. It's also a color e-ink screen, and I use it in the evenings for reading because it doesn't strain my eyes as much as looking at other screens that I'm like playing with all day. But I'm also less tempted to just jump into social media on that. Watching videos on Instagram on an e-ink display kind of stinks, and I consider that a positive feature. On my phone, I will start with the intention of reading an article or reading a book or doing something positive, and then 10 minutes later I find myself like looking at Twitter. I don't know how I got there. I don't feel like I made the conscious decision to do it. It's just something I do. When I'm on an e-ink display, I find myself to be much more focused. The Remarkable Paper Pro also has a color screen, but they're using a different process here than the books. They're using something called Canvas Color, and it's based on something called e-ink Gallery 3. Now, usually this tech is used for really slow, like refresh rate situations, but the Remarkable has gotten the response time way up, which is really necessary when we're talking about drawing. Now, anytime you draw on an e-ink display, something you're going to notice is things are flashing in and out. That just kind of comes with the territory as it's setting the pixels, and is something you have to get used to if you're used to drawing on like an iPad or an Android tablet or something like that. And even though this is a color screen and you can use spot colors in the Note app, the colors aren't that great. They're really kind of dull, which isn't that surprising. That's just what you get with an e-ink screen. Now, another addition to the Paper Pro is that front light on the screen. Now, one of the drawbacks of the Remarkable 2 is that while it was great for reading inside or outside in light, when you got into like these low light situations, you were just out of luck. Although, to be fair, that's the same problem a paper book has too. Generations of humans have figured this out. Why I couldn't just sit next to a lamp, the world will never know. But I don't have to now. Now I can just toggle on the light on the device and I could read this at night. I can read this in bed. The light is really subtle though. So if you have it on like in a daylight situation, like when I was filming this, it's really hard to see. In fact, I can't really tell that the light is on. That's not necessarily a bad thing because looking at an e-ink screen is a little like looking at paper. So if you are in a bright light situation, you don't need the backlight on. Now, the downside of that light is it does have a pretty significant impact on battery. While the old Remarkable could go weeks between charges while using it regularly, with the light on, it will drain the battery significantly faster. So if you're using it with the light, you're probably going to have to recharge it every few days instead of every few weeks. And since the light can be subtle, it can be on during the day, draining your battery without you really noticing it or needing it. All right, so let's talk more about this pen. This pen isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be coming out of the box. First of all, just holding it in your hand actually feels pretty good. It's got some weight to it. It seems to have a little bit more weight than the pen that came with the Remarkable 2. The tip itself isn't as narrow. That's something you find on some of those Wacom pens, is it does have a fairly narrow tip. The grip on the screen is really what saves this pen for me. USI pens do have a fair amount of wobble to them, and that definitely shows up here, especially with some of the tools, the pen tool, the brush tool. But I find that the pencil tool, which is really what I want to use on a sketchbook, that wave, that wobble isn't as prominent. And once I got past the testing phase and just got to drawing on this, I did enjoy it. I did like the feel of it. At the end of the day, the grippiness of the screen is what wins me over. Now, if you're used to using digital art apps and other devices, set your expectations a little bit. Though the pencil does feel nice, the notebook app that's available to you here for drawing just doesn't have a ton of features. There are some drawing tools. You have your pencils, you have your pens, you have some markers. Most of them have 3 weights you can choose from. There are also some different colors now, so you can choose those colors. The line width is not really adjustable beyond that, and choosing like a very specific color outside of the handful that they give you just isn't available. There are also layers here. This is something that you don't find in a lot of notes apps on other devices like the Kindle Scribe. I don't remember if this was on Remarkable 2 when I reviewed it, but it's a nice addition, and for me, an illustrator, this makes it way more usable. The eraser is a little bit weird here. Oftentimes with drawing apps, the eraser is very precise. Here, if you erase, it tries to approximate what part of the line it wants you to remove. It's probably better for erasing text or handwriting than it is for erasing a drawing. Now, instead of creating a canvas, you're setting up a notebook. So there are quite a few layout options here associated with that. You can go with a blank canvas, you can go with graph paper, you can go with like a dot graph. There's even a storyboard layout here. That's kind of cool. And the export options are a little bit limited too. To get everything off the device, you have to email it to yourself. There is a web portal that you could log on another device like your laptop or anything else. You can log on and you can see your files there, but you can't export your files there. The only way to actually use your files is to go onto the Remarkable itself and email it to you. And that's kind of a bummer because there's no way to attach it to Google Drive or Dropbox or iCloud or anything else like that. You can just email files. Now, when you do go to email, you can take your handwriting, convert it to text. You can also just send a text file to yourself. The image options, though, are PDF, PNG, and SVG. Sending yourself PDF or SVG, it converts your artwork to vector, so those nice like scratchy pencil lines, they lose a little bit of their character there. The PNG option does retain that organic feel of your notes, so there isn't any way to define the pixel size though. So what you're sending yourself is a 1620 by 2160 image. I guess that's not bad, but again, for finished artwork, anything that you want to print, if you want to make it larger, you can't really do that. The canvas size is the canvas size. I say all of this not to be negative. I'm trying not to be negative, but what I'm trying to do is set your expectations. This is a sketchbook. It's nothing more than a sketchbook, and it's nothing less. So should you buy this? Should you upgrade? Well, the real question here is, do you have a Remarkable 2? Do you love it? I know there are a lot of people out there who really do like the Remarkable 2. In that case, I think this is a solid upgrade. The subtle backlight is a really nice feature, and I think it's something that a lot of people who have the Remarkable 2 are going to really appreciate. Also, something you're going to definitely notice right away is that the interface here just feels so much snappier. The Remarkable 2 is several years old. It's not that fast. Here, it's noticeably snappier. It just feels better to use. The color screen, I don't think you really need color. I mean, I guess if you want to use highlighters and things like that in your notes, you'll appreciate it. But with the colors on the screen, I wouldn't set your expectations too high. It's also worth noting, this is a little bigger, a little heavier than the Remarkable 2. It's a bit harder to hold just one-handed for long stretches. So if you're reading it, that might be something to take into account too. Now, if you're brand new to e-ink, never used an e-ink device before, for me, there's better stuff out there. I'm going to stick with my Books Air. The Kindle Scribe isn't bad, but it's tied to Amazon, and I absolutely hate their notebook app. The Books just kind of does it all. It's a full-blown e-ink Android tablet. The Remarkable and their accessories, they're really beautiful hardware, but the Books, I think, is just better from a software standpoint. And it's kind of a bummer because there's so much here I like. I like that good scratchy pen feel, and I want to use this more. I want to use it for more. And ultimately, the software and the philosophy are the things that held me back there. If all you want to do is sketch, go for it. If you want to do more, you really can't. So that's the Remarkable Paper Pro. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.